wants to come and talk for us. So this month we have Elaine Lynch. So Elaine Lynch is our friendly local archaeologist. She's fabulous, and Elaine is working for the Burren Field Advisors Programme, up with the Burren Programme, and she's also been involved in commercial and research, excavation and archaeology work for nearly the last 15 years. And we don't know how she looks so young, having done all that work for so many years. So she's absolutely amazing, a mine of information. She's worked a lot with the Burrenbeo Conservation Volunteers, helping us find monuments to clear around, getting the permission and stuff, and doing amazing field trips after the work is all done. So lovely payback for all the volunteers, and all her events are always fully booked out. So if you ever do want to come out with the volunteers, just email volunteer@burrenbeo.com. We can put you on the list, and you can come and join us with Elaine at some point working out in the Burren. So Elaine's going to be talking to us about Templecronan. She's just gone for a second. I'm really hoping she comes back.
My dryer is on, sorry.
I was going to say I can't talk about Templecronan for her. So I'll hand you over to Elaine anyway now, and she can talk to you about the work up at Templecronan in the heart of the Burren. Thanks so much, Elaine.
Well, thank you, Kate. That was a lovely introduction. And listen, just thanks to everyone for coming tonight. So I'm just going to talk about the recent kind of conservation works in the Burren, in Templecronan, that we've been involved in. The Field Monument Advisor Programme has been involved in, and then I'm also just going to talk a bit about the surrounding archaeology. Now, I know there's probably a lot of you here tonight who know Templecronan quite well, so but I'll just kind of run through some of the other stuff that we've been doing, well, some of the recent preservation works we've done. And again, I'll just run through some of the archaeology where probably a lot of you might know already. So just to begin with, so we know, like Templecronan itself, there's numerous amounts of archaeological recorded monuments in the area. And these are just some of the ones I'm actually just going to run through tonight. But first I'm just going to discuss, so you can see there's like an ecclesiastical enclosure, the church, the graveyard itself, the cross. There's two holy wells, but the location is not known. There's two penitential stations, and there's 2 shrines, and one of these is the main shrine we're going to be talking about, the preservation works for this. And we have a settlement, a deserted medieval settlement. I'm going to show you a few pictures of that. And then there's also an architectural fragment. So there's a good lot of archaeology in this location. And we're actually in the townland of Termin. And Templecronan is central to that. So you can see the church here in this kind of triangular shaped triangular enclosure, right? And I just want to show you what the site looks like on the 6-inch map, which is, about the 1840s, this map was done up. So you can see that Templecronan itself is Britain, and it says it's in ruins at this time. There's a graveyard is marked, Cronan, which is the Holy Well, and also a cross, and Termin Cottage is also marked on this map. And then the 25-inch map, which is the 1900s map, so it's about 60 years later. And again, the same, Templecronan is marked in ruins, Cronan, and the graveyard, Termin Cottage, and the cross. So I will be discussing some of these sites now today. So I just wanted you to see what the site looks like today. This is the aerial. If you see the top right-hand corner, you can see the church, and you can see the walls. It's like a triangular enclosing wall around the site, and this wall seems to be the same on that 1840s map and the 1900s. So nothing much has changed. So we know that the site as it is today in that triangular thing is the same on the 1840s map and 1900s. Now, so what kind of preservation works we're involved in? It's actually related to this shrine. So you can see that on this map on the left-hand side, the church is drawn and the 2 shrines. So shrine number 1 and shrine number 2. And the work's really focused on shrine number 2. And you can see that that's actually outside this northeast boundary wall. So you can see again, it's the same, what was drawn on the 1st and 2nd edition map around the church, and the shrine is actually located outside this wall. And there it is just on the right-hand side on the OS map. So again, this shrine is one of 2 shrines on the site, but again, it's outside the wall. So this is what it looked like before we did the works. So you can see the shrine is right up against the wall, and you know, what actually happened was the farmer who owned the land where the shrine was located in was actually getting quite concerned about the shrine, because what was happening, people were climbing over the wall and they were knocking stones, and the shrine was kind of at risk of getting damaged. So he wanted the shrine to be reincorporated back into Templecronan. So he very kindly gave over a bit of land so that we could take down the wall and move it. And that would mean then that the new wall would go around the shrine, kind of reincorporating the shrine back into the grounds of Templecronan Church. And, you know, so then there'd be, at least the wall would be moved and there would be no risk then of damage to the shrine itself. So what we did was we kind of consulted with the farmer, the Burren programme and the national monuments, and especially Gro Conroy, about, you know, is it about doing the works and kind of coming up with kind of a method statement as to how the works would be done. So you can see that we decided that the wall, which is currently, it was a drystone wall, and we were going to move it a couple of meters, so around 4 meters from its location, and to go around the shrine. So kind of with the aim to protect the shrine, you know. So you can just see here from the bottom right-hand map, this was kind of, our focus was to go around the shrine itself and to give a bit of space, not that the wall was at a distance from the shrine, so that people could go around it. So what did we have to do before, you know, I just want to give you a few details into before we kind of got to doing the works. So we did consult with the farmer and the landowner who owns the land, and we consulted with the national monuments, and Gro Conroy was quite invested in getting this work done, and we came up with a strategy for the works. So just for anybody, just general information, anyone who is doing any work on a national monument, which is under ownership or guardianship of the minister or the local authority, it actually requires a ministerial consent. So that involves, it's a particular application that we fill out the details, and we also have to supply a method statement for the work. So the method statement just highlighted that there was a threat to the shrine itself, that it was kind of an immediate threat, that damage was going to happen to it. We outlined the brief for the works itself. So like that would just suggest how we were going to take down the wall, that we were going to do all of this by hand, and then we were going to move the wall. And all of this work was going to be done by hand. Now, it didn't require any excavation works, like no digging or anything. The wall was going to be built on the ground, and we had consulted with a professional drystone wall builder, and he felt that there was no need for any kind of foundational digging, so that was actually good news. So we also, as part of the method statement, we wanted to kind of engage with the community, and we wanted to do this through the Burren Conservation Volunteers. And as well, then we also said that we were going to employ a professional drystone wall builder. So that would be somebody who knows how to build a wall that would be secure enough for the site. And then also that all of the works, the removing of the wall and the building of the new wall, would all be monitored by an archaeologist. And also that just the main aim of this work was really for the future preservation of the shrine itself. And then we also noted what kind of benefits to this work would do on the site, you know, so that mainly that the preservation of the shrine itself, and possibly additional things that people would be able to walk around the shrine, be able to view the site a bit better rather than climbing the wall and getting in. So then on completion of the works as well, we have to submit a report, kind of like a monitoring report to the National Monuments and the National Museum. And these are conditions anyway, once you get a ministerial consent. So that's kind of a bit of paperwork to be done beforehand. So once we got our ministerial consent, which was great, they agreed to all of our, and they had put their own conditions on it. I consulted then with Kate from Burrenbeo Trust, and we arranged a BCV's day. So we had quite a number of people come out, and So the aim of that day was to take down the wall by hand. So it was quite laboursome job, and that all the stones would get taken down and we would move them. And we consulted with the wall builder as well as to where was a good position to put the stones. So we moved the stones a good bit away from the shrine itself so that he would be able to easily put the stones back in place for along the line of the new walls. So we didn't have to, all the stones were from the original wall were used in the new wall. Also as part of we realized that we were possibly going to need additional stones for the wall, because it was just going to be a couple of meters longer than the previous wall. So we also suggested an area that was within the site that also Conroy had actually, from the National Monuments, had spotted that there was kind of a rubble of stones in the eastern corner. And it was agreed that we would carefully remove any of the loose stones from that corner. And if we found anything in that, we would underneath or within the loose stone, we would stop our works immediately and leave it. So you can just see from our top right hand corner, this is the area of where we got some extra stones for the building of the wall. So again, it's just come from the site, and it was also a good opportunity to be able to kind of clean up that corner because there was quite a lot of stones in that corner. So again, everything was done kind of a nice slow pace, and all the stones were removed from the wall. Now we did start, when you kind of start taking down, you're not really too sure how to approach it. But what we did was all the smaller stones, obviously from the top, were taken off first. And then what we noticed is that there were some very large stones set about 1 meter apart. And then, so these, as you can see just here in the top right-hand side, there's these very large stones, and then the smaller stones were set between. So it was quite a sturdy and quite a well-built wall. But we had to, so once we had all the smaller stones removed, then we moved the bigger ones. And that was very laboursome. So I really have to commend all those volunteers that came out that day, because we really, it was just really laboursome and quite a lot of work to be done. Now, just for anybody who's just wondering, we did kind of tell everybody, just keep an eye on the stones that they were removing, in case there was any architectural fragments within the stones themselves, which wouldn't be unusual. That sometimes happens, where you might find something maybe related to the church, or you might find anything, So we were just kind of careful to keep an eye out for that. So this is the group of the volunteers that came out that day. So there was about, around 15, I think, of us, or 13, 14 of us. So it was great. So you can see we've taken down the wall at this point. And at one point we were kind of passing everything in a line as well. So we kind of got into a nice swing of work, as we got along. So this was just the corner where we got some of the additional stones from. So it was just rubble. You can see it there. It's all kind of loose stone that has just probably been put there over time. And we had a group we just kind of separated into a group. We had a couple, about 2 or 3 people working in this corner, and they were just slowly taking the stone away because you just don't know what you might find underneath it. So we did actually find, you can see my red line in this photograph underneath, just a line of stones. They weren't not like a wall or anything, but there was just a line of stones. So at this point, when we started noticing this coming up, we actually decided to stop the works there and just leave it as it is. So we cleaned off all the stones that were around the front of it, that were just, that weren't set in anything, and we just kind of tidied it up, and we decided to leave it. So that was just kind of what we found in that corner, just a kind of a line of stones. They were kind of set, these large stones at the base. Now, what we did find during the clear out was we found a fragment of a rotary quernstone. We did find a stone, this lovely rectangular stone that has some punched dressing on it. So this may have been some sort of fragment used in the church itself, or maybe an enclosing wall or something, So we have actually left that quite large, and we've left that on the site close to where we found it. And then the other 2 things that we found a lovely statue of Mary that somebody had obviously left, and we found that at the base of the wall, and along with a fragment of a glass bottle. So these 2 items are quite quite modern. Now I've kept them, and I will be returning them probably onto the site. I'm going to probably put them down by the Holy Well, because that's really where they belong. Somebody has deposited them there, and they deserve to stay on the site. And just feel that I felt the Holy Well would be a good location for that. So just the rotary quernstone that we found. Now, this was found by one of the volunteers, that she had spotted it, and it was great. I mean, it was just magnificent to find something. Sometimes you don't know if you're going to find anything or not, but it just means that you keep your eyes open. And so she showed it to me, and I got very excited, because I actually thought that there was a chance you might find a fragment of a quernstone. It's actually happened to me before when I was monitoring on a church site. I had found in rubble a piece of a quernstone. So anyway, and it's happened again. And so just for anybody that's a little bit uncertain what quernstones are, well, this is a rotary quernstone. So quernstones come in two pieces. So there's a large one you can see from my lovely reconstruction that I got from the internet. There's the top stone, and then there's the basal stone. The fragment we found is from the top stone. All right, and what it is you can see that there's about 1/5 or 1/6 of this stone. That's what we've after finding, and I've just done a drawing of it just to show you that the stone itself has a central circle, and then there's a smaller circle on the side of it. And basically this rotary quernstone is the upper stone of two kind of conjoining quernstones. And what would happen is it's used for grinding down grain and seeds for making flour. Flour. So what would have happened was they would pour the seeds into the central hole, and that would fall down then between the two stones, and then they would use the second, you can see the second hole here, put a stick into it, and then turned it around in a circle and kept pouring in seeds, and that would start to form the flour that then you could collect, that would fall out down between the two stones. So that was a lovely find, because quernstones can date. They're very hard. They don't have a particular date, unfortunately, but they are, this one most likely we can definitely say is associated with the medieval period. And any time from the first to second century, rotary quernstones are from can date as early as the 1st or 2nd century to AD to up until modern times. So this quernstone could be anywhere between that very long time frame, but it's still lovely to find, and it kind of creates a bit of a domestic element to the site, which I'll talk about a bit later. So it's just a lovely kind of, an everyday item that, that has been found. So it's really nice find. Now, so once the works was done and we had all the stones taken down, immediately we saw the benefits to this work. And you can just see what we did was we put the smaller stones over here. You can just see from the upper phone, the smaller stones a little bit further away, so that the wall builder will be able to access those. And those bigger stones, which were quite difficult to move, we did move them over a bit, and we just put them on a different side so that he'd know that the larger stones were on this side and smaller ones on this, and he'd be able to pick and choose whichever stones he wanted to use in his wall. But once the work was done, it just, again, the benefits, the benefits were just magnificent, because you could definitely feel the shrine, and the immediate threat to that shrine was now gone, so that was just a wonderful kind of moment, so you can just see it here. You can see, well, there's a tree located beside the shrine, and there was 1 or 2 stones that we did not move because they're kind of embedded in the tree, and we just didn't want to risk trying to get them out in case they caused any damage to the shrine. And it was just there, and there's no harm just to have left them there on the site. But again, so this was kind of the first moment, and it was really nice to be a part of this, where the line of sight between the 2 shrines and the church were finally back together. This is the first time that you could see clearly the 2 shrines could see each other and the church again. So that hasn't happened for possibly around 200 years. It looks like that 1840s map, that wall was in place at around the 1840s. So that means then that the 2 shrines hadn't been able visually see each other for about 200 years. So it was lovely just to see that immediate benefit to the work as well. So this is kind of like the first moment where you could see them all together. So it was lovely to kind of be a part of that. And, you know, the volunteers were, you know, the volunteers are also a part of this. This is the benefit of this type of work that we get to do. So this is just a photo from the other side, from the kind of south side, where you can see the lovely shrine that has been there within the site of Templecronan the whole time. And then you could see now you can see the other shrine. So again, it's just showing you a different angle there of the two shrines together. So once we had completed our work, the wall builder came in pretty quick after us and built up the wall. And in fairness, he did an amazing job, as you can see it here. It's a drystone wall. It's kind of in keeping. You'd barely even notice it's in keeping with the style of the other walls that are going around Templecronan, and he used all the stone that we had gathered for him. So, and it's quite a nice build, and it's quite high, so it's not easy for, you know, people won't be climbing over anyway, hopefully not climbing over. And it means then that the cattle now can easily graze this field that belongs to the farmer without disturbing the grounds of Templecronan. So you can see it's a very nice, you know, very nice built wall, and very compact and tight, you know. So it was lovely to see it being built. And here's just another view of it, another view there from the south, and again the shrine. So these are just more lovely photos of the wall itself now, and you can see that there's space from the top right hand. In the top right hand photo, you can see there's lovely space now to walk around. So the wall builder himself made sure, you know, he made sure to keep the wall, to move the wall, to put into place. Now, we had already agreed where we were going to position it, but you know, it was just great to see that he kept that space away from the shrine. So that means how people can come out and walk around the shrine and view it at all, you know, 360-degree view, and easily without any disturbance to it. So I'd been out to take some aerial photographs of with my drone of the site, just to show you what it looks like from above. And it's such a beautiful site, you know. Just if anybody hasn't been to see Templecronan, I hope I'm doing it justice for you tonight, but I definitely recommend a visit to it because it's a really nice place to go. And this is just a direct aerial photo that I took, and you can see the line of the old wall, and eventually over time that will just grass over, so you probably won't even notice, hopefully another year or two, that, you know, that'll be all grass covered and no one will even know that the wall has been moved. And you can see the two shrines. You can see this one here, you can see this one here, sorry, now the trees, unfortunately the trees are there kind of obscuring our view, but you can see that the two shrines are actually in line with the back of the eastern back wall of the church. So it's just very interesting now to have a look at them there when you see it from an aerial view, that there is seems to be kind of a line forming between the two shrines and the back wall of the church. Now, so what we did was, after the works had been done, we put together, it's kind of like an archaeological monitoring report. So it just details the outline of the work that we did. And this report is part of the conditions under the ministerial consent. And I just wanted to, you know, we filled out, put in the photos and the maps that we created, you know, of the work, and the BCV, the volunteers, but we just want to highlight some of the benefits that really you kind of ended up, after the work had been done, you realize there was more benefits to what we had done than you previously thought was going to happen. So the new wall literally immediately removed the threat of damage to the shrine, and now the line of the new wall is now guaranteed the future preservation and protection of the shrine, because now it'll be looked after by the OPW, who currently manage the site. The shrine has also now been reincorporated back into the complex of monuments of Templecronan, from which it was separated for possibly about 200 years, or maybe even more. I'm not too sure when that wall had been built. It also has restored the sightline between the two shrines in Templecronan Church, and it has now also improved the access around the shrine and also access around the church, because the Northeast Church the wall was very close to Northeast Church, and anyone who's got out to the site might have kind of struggled to get around that corner. So now the church and the shrine can now be easily viewed from all sides, from all sides. So that wall has really opened up and created a sense of space around. And it's also greatly enhanced the visual aspects of the site at Templecronan. And again, sorry, now I know I said an element of space around the church, and being able to kind of easily walk around the church and the shrine itself. Also, it was an opportunity to tidy up, I suppose, the rubble stone in the eastern corner, and then it also revealed a line of stones below. And also the project itself involved members of the local community, and who assisted again with dismantling the wall. And this was done through the Burrenbeo Trust Conservation Volunteers, and it also involved the local volunteers, and which greatly enhances the awareness and protection of these important sites at Templecronan and throughout the Burren. So they're just some of the benefits that we have actually included within our final report for the ministerial consent. So I'll just move on now. I know the time. Let me just check, sorry. I'm just going to move on to some of the archaeology around Templecronan. So you can see we have the church in the middle, the two shrines, and then, we have the graveyard and a few monuments around it. So I'm just going to briefly go into those. So the church itself is dedicated to St. Cronan, which might be the same possible Cronan of Roscrea. It's a 12th century, it's down kind of as a possible 12th century in a Romanesque style church. So, and it's also a single cell oratory. So it just has it's a single room. So it's a small kind of temple site. It has an east-west orientation, and on the south side, there is Cyclopean masonry on the south wall. And now Cyclopean masonry is sometimes kind of pre-12th century. So it's a little bit hard to know if this site is part of the church pre-12th century, or was it rebuilt, was it built in an antique type style? So it's a little bit hard to know. So there is possibilities that the church, parts of the church might be pre-12th century, but has also been updated during the 12th century, during that kind of Romanesque period. The western wall has a trabeate doorway, which also again suggests pre-12th century. These are normally earlier styles. It also has a series of Romanesque heads. It's got a lovely decorated window, which I'm going to show you all of these, and a later 15th century pointed doorway. Now, the other thing about this one, it's got these lovely 4 corbels that stick out on either corner of the site, and this would have held the church itself. It would have had a timber framed roof, which was supported by those corbels, and that roof would have kind of extended a bit out beyond the sides of the church. And this is possibly following a style from the previous church on the site, which would have been a timber church. So just remember that we're probably looking at an established kind of ecclesiastical site around the 6th or 7th or 8th century, and then the stone church has come in around the 12th century. So you're looking at like what would have been on this site before this church would have been a timber church, and then obviously during the 11th or 12th century it was built then in stone. So this is just anyone who knows the notice board of Templecronan. This is a lovely kind of drawing of what the church would have looked like. So it's it's a very nice kind of depiction, and it shows one of the shrines as well. You can see it there. So it's a nice kind of reconstruction. So this is what the Cyclopean masonry looks like, and it's mainly on the south wall of this church. So you can see Cyclopean masonry consists of basically Cyclopean large stones, very large kind of stones. So that's them now, sorry, on the south side of the church. The blocked up trabeate doorway. So again, possibly pre-12th century is a little bit hard to know, except what is interesting with this traviate doorway is that there is actually a Romanesque head carved into one of the stones. So that does suggest that maybe the traviate doorway was put in during the 12th century. And then we have the lovely Romanesque rounded head window set in a splayed embrasure on the east wall. So this is the view of it from the inside of the church, and this is actually decorated. Now, the decoration is on the south side, and it kind of consists of these rows of pellets, very nicely, really nicely done and decorated. There is the side of on the north is actually damaged, and it's a little bit hard to know if that zone was decorated, but there's a good chance that it might have been. It might have been decorated as well. So it's a very, very beautiful window and a lovely feature in this church. And then just inside of the church, there are the remains of the altar at the bottom here, and there is 2 fragments of a font stone. So that's in the center. So the Romanesque heads, there is actually 9 in total, and 9, it's a good, for such a little church, to have 9 heads is quite impressive. There is 4 human and 5 animal heads, and you can see just from my drawing here, the west wall has 5 heads in total. It's got 2 human ones. The top one is a human head. I didn't get a good enough photo really to show you. And then there's 2 beside the door, and these are animals. And there's actually an animal underneath the corbel. So if you ever go and see it, you can see it here in the photo on the left hand side. You can see it's very hard to get a good photo to show it, but there is an animal with kind of flaring nostrils, and he's obviously in the underneath of that corbel. So these are lovely to go and find them and look for them. There's also one directly above the wall, the doorway on the north wall. And again, it's a lovely face, human face. And then there is another one on the interior of the north wall. Now this one, again, it's very badly weathered, and there's no kind of defining features on it. And it's actually looks like it's an upside down human head. So it looks like it's, the chin might have been the top and then underneath. As to why that's happened, I'm not too sure. And then there's another animal head on the south wall, and this is another beautiful kind of one, very similar to the ones under the corbel, similar kind of animal type features. And then the east wall also has one, but only under the corbel. So there's 2 animal heads on 2 of the corbels that are on the south kind of wall, sticking out from the south walls. There is corbels on the north side of the church, but these seem to be damaged underneath. So it's hard to know if there was animals, if they were decorated or not. It's again, can't say for sure. But you can see this one on the east wall is actually, it kind of came up better now in this photo. So it's very nice, and it's lovely if you ever go see them in person. Now, I just wanted the north wall. On the north wall, you have a later pointed doorway, and this doorway is possibly around the 15th or 16th century. So what would have happened was they obviously blocked up the traviate doorway, and then they installed this new door on the north wall. Now, it's a bit unusual for doors to be installed on the north side. They're actually normally, there's an emphasis for everything on the south side of the churches, because there's always kind of a bit of a significance to the south side. So this is a little bit unusual, and it's a little bit hard to know as to why they went for the north, but it could be to do with the lay of the land and how the site was, how people arrived into the site. So like maybe the entrance to the site was kind of up from the north. And it also could be quite practical. It could be to do with the south wall has the Cyclopean masonry in it, so maybe they didn't want to disturb that. So they could be just 2 reasons maybe why they went for the north side of the church. Now, so that's just, I just wanted to show you the inside, because sometimes, we also look at the outside and they're also lovely, but this one has a few features. It's got the hinges where a wooden door would have been placed in. So they're still intact in the church, and they're just still in really good condition. So I just wanted to show you the graveyard. And again, this graveyard is kind of, all the stone markings are on the south side. So everybody kind of likes to be buried on the south side of the church. And you can just see there isn't any kind of markers. They're just kind of stone slabs that have obviously weathered and broken over time. So you can just see them here in this row. And just, this is just an angle then from the east side. And these are what looks like, these are all kind of old grave markers. So that's, and then the shrines. So I'm just going to move back to the shrines, and I'm just going to show you, just put a context to the shrines, that there are quite a few in the country. So the shrines are possibly 7th century and might be possibly erected by Cronan himself when he established the church. They usually house the remains, human remains of possibly a founding saint. So Saint Cronan could be himself buried in one of these. They're triangular in shape, which kind of, that shape kind of like reflects the shape of the roof of the church. So that might be significant, that triangular shape. They're house shrines as well, they're kind of called house shrines or box shrines that would have housed the bones of saints or possibly even objects of devotion. And this would have, the aim of this would be to encourage pilgrims to the site. And there's approximately about 9 of these triangular shaped shrines in the country. Now there probably would have been a lot more during this time, probably an awful lot more, but this is just what's kind of remaining today, what's still standing today. So if there's approximately 9 examples in Ireland, and 2 of them are at Templecronan, kind of really, signifies the importance of this site, and these shrines are well worth going to see. So here's one, there's one in Kerry, not too far from Portmagee. It's to do with Saint Buina, and just also on this site is, along with this shrine, again, very similar to the ones in Templecronan, actually probably the same. There's also a small oratory on this site, and there's actually an outdoor altar. And this one, but very close to the shrine, you can see there's a decorated kind of cross slab. Now this shrine is a bit different compared to the 2 at Templecronan, is that it does have a hole in the bottom. And that hole would have allowed pilgrims to put their hand in and to touch the bones, possibly while they were saying their prayers. So that would have been quite significant to be able to do that. It doesn't look like the ones at Templecronan had any hole, but not all of them did. So you can see another one here in Kerry. And again, this shrine is actually, there's no, I don't think there's any remains of a church on this site, but there is a Christian enclosure, and the shrine itself is sitting on top of a loft, or it's like an old altar. So again, very similar. You can see these, they're very similar to what we're looking at. There's another one in Kerry, and this one's on an island. And this monastery, we know that this one was established in the 7th century, and the site itself kind of consists of enclosures, hut sites, an oratory, and a loft. And the loft, as you can just see from the bottom right hand photo, the shrine itself is sitting on top of it. And this shrine, this one's just a bit interesting because this shrine has actually been excavated. So there's actually been a good bit of excavation on this site, but I'm just going to go into the shrine itself, the excavation. So they found 3 burials within the shrine itself. And the burials were contained within stone cists. So that's just like a stone line kind of box within the shrine itself. And they found that these two stone cists, each one contained an adult remains, and one of them had the addition of a child's bones. So that's quite interesting. And these have actually been dated to around the 7th or 8th century. So this could kind of cement that these shrines were actually constructed during the 7th or 8th century, as even the ones at Templecronan may have been from that period. Now the excavation would kind of only reveal what date they are, but it's most likely, it's very similar to this one, that you are looking at possibly a 7th or 8th century date for these shrines. Here's just another one on Church Island, again in Kerry, but this one's a little bit different. I'm not going to go into this one as much. It's actually a box. This is a rectangular box. It's not got the triangular shape, so this one was more rectangular and probably had a slab on the top of it. And we just know that this site itself was also established in the 7th or 8th century. Now, just to go to a different part of the country, there is one in Slane, and this is known as Saint Eric's shrine, and he established the monastery at around the 6th century. So again, just a little bit earlier. And you can see this, it's got quite like a later kind of medieval church, early Gothic tower, and a walled enclosure. And there is another shrine from County Meath in Downpatrick. Donapatrick, sorry, I couldn't get a photo of that to show you. And now just back to Clare again, coming back to Templecronan, there is 2 on the Aran Islands. So again, very close to Templecronan. There is one on Inishmore, and it consists of, there's only just 3 stones left, and you can just see from the drawing here, it doesn't look like it's in great condition. I haven't seen them myself. I might go ahead and have a look sometime. And again, just it has 2 triangular ends and one of the side stones still intact. That's what's been described. And there is only 1 stone from the slab shrine in Inishman. Now, I think the stone, it doesn't look like the stone is in its original location, so they don't know where the shrine would have originally stood, but there is a stone, and it is rectangular, even though it doesn't look great from the photo. It's rectangular in shape, and it has a hole in it. So again, another one of those ones where they would have been able to put their hand in and being able to touch the bones within it. So just interesting that there's a few of them in the country. I mean, not very many surviving today, so they're well worth going to see them. And Templecronan has 2 really well intact shrines, so I just want to highlight that it's fantastic to have 2 of them in one place. So I'm just going to go really quickly now into the other sites that are on around Templecronan, and you can see the 2 I have marked here. I'm just going to show you that if you were walking from Templecronan to see the Holy Well, you'd pass a penitential station, and the Holy Well is further south, and there's also a penitential station around there. So if we're kind of leaving now the church and going past, and we want to go and visit the well, you're going to pass this penitential station. I have passed it so many times myself, and I didn't even notice it. So I'd say maybe some people might notice it, but you can see it's kind of grass covered. There's stones there. It's actually got quite a good bit of scrub around it, and it's a little bit hard to see, but you'll walk past this penitential station. So this is marked as a monument. So you can see it here, and people would have said their prayers and done their stations and walked around this. You can't walk around it now today. There's a lot of scrub around it. So then just the further side down to Cronan's Well and or Tubbercronan. So this is a well looked after Holy Well, and there's a lovely drystone wall built around it, and you just climb over the sty, and the well is here at the base of this sort of ridge of rock, and you can see that there's a modern concrete slab has obviously been put in to protect it, and you can see that anyway there's water coming in all the time. So it's a very lovely well, and well worth visiting. Now there is no known patron date associated with this well. There probably was at some point, but maybe it's gotten lost through time. The penitential station itself is just right beside it, again within that kind of dry stone wall enclosure, and it just consists of a mound of stones. And again, people would have come and done their stations, and I'm not too sure, I'm sure it's still used today, because you can see that it's been well walked and you can walk around it. So again, just another, if you're ever in the area, just worth kind of going down to see this Holy Well and this and the penitential station. So I just wanted to show you as well, so kind of just a little bit, you'd actually cross over this, and you wouldn't really, it's very kind of hard to see this, but there is an enclosure wall, possibly the early ecclesiastical enclosure for Templecronan, one of the enclosing walls around it. Now, if you see it on the ground, there is a mound. It's kind of hard to photograph it. There is a mound, and there is actually a modern wall that's been built on top of it. So that is, I flew the drone over just to get a better look at it, and you can see there is a semicircular wall. I've just drawn it in red. It is forming, and it does look like it would be an earlier enclosure wall associated with the site. And it is possible that the wall, as you can see just further over to the right, which you actually cross in to go and visit the site, there's a sty up here, could be in line with that earlier enclosure, because if you kind of draw around it, you will see that they do kind of nearly join up in a sort of a semicircular pattern. Now you just have to remember the kind of landscape as well, that's at this side, on the eastern side of the church. This is quite a high ridge, so the land kind of goes vertical up here. So the enclosing wall seems to end at the base of that kind of rock. And then, you know, so it's most likely that there was a wall going the whole way around the church and protecting the church and the graveyard within it. So this is just really nice because, again, it's just kind of it was identified through those Google Maps. You know, I think someone spotted it and has been out to visit it, and it does now seem to suggest that there is an early ecclesiastical enclosure still intact, parts of it anyway, still intact on the site. Now we're just going to go further to the west of the site, and I'm going to show you the remains of the cross. So just for anybody, this is actually in private. This is in somebody's garden. So if you are going to, you know, maybe ask if the owner, if it's okay to go in, because it is in their kind of private kind of garden at the back of their house. It basically consists of a pedestal and you can see them here on the ground. So you can see the pedestal is here, still a very large kind of boulder-like stone with a rectangular hole in the top of it, which would have held the shaft of the cross. And you can see the two pieces of the shaft of the cross are still there on the ground, lying on the ground. Now it's broken, but it does look like they could possibly go back together. I read it that there was in one of the books I was reading as part of the research that the last time the cross was actually seen standing in memory was around 1893. So that means the cross was still intact. Well, I don't know about the arms of the cross, but it was still standing in 1893 and has subsequently broken. So I do believe, and my map now has gone a bit array here, but where my arrow is where the location of the cross is, and it's most likely that is pretty close to its original location. And these crosses would have marked the limits of Termin, which actually it means place of sanctuary, you know, or a holy land, you know, holy, there's a land within it, you know. So there, even though we are in the townland of Termin as well, I don't want people to get confused, but the term Termin means kind of a place of sanctuary. So the crosses would have marked the boundaries of the Termin, and so this is what this cross probably has. Its function would have been, and for pilgrims who were traveling to the site would see the crosses and then know and kind of make their way that they're going in the right direction. It was also written as well that there was actually more than one cross in this around Templecronan, but the others are long gone, and you know, there don't seem to be any remains of them. So that's just interesting that there was maybe more than one. So dotted maybe around, there might have been another one at the south end and the northwest end, you know. So it's just kind of interesting. So the other thing that's on the site, now this is kind of within the farm itself. So again, if you're going to look for these, I'd recommend asking the landowner. There is actually an architectural fragment that's possibly the top of a twin-looped light window. We don't know where this is from. I can't say if it's related to the church or not. It may have come in when, you know, walls are being built and stone was being brought in to build the walls. But just for anyone who's just, I think that this is what this is. If anybody has any suggestions, let me know. But a twin looped window, you can see one here. This is Kalila Church, by the way, except this one's got ogie shaped on the top, so it's a bit different. It's just these lovely two kind of double twin lights. And this is actually from a tower house in Boston. So I was just trying to get some kind of photos just to put this into, you know, like, oh, you know, when you look at it, it's hard to envision what it is until you see the kind of architectural fragments that they could be from. So I'm just going to move on now really quickly because I'd say we're nearly done. There is, just to the north of the site, there's an enclosure marked, a stone enclosure. You can just see from the drone that's just marked here. That might have been an animal enclosure of some sort. And you'll actually walk past this if you're visiting the site. This is actually one of the entrance ways into Templecronan. You'll actually walk past this enclosure, and it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see it here on the ground. It's sort of oval shaped, but it's missing its stones from this side, you know. So, but again, just if you are walking past, it's worth just to stop and have a look. Also within this field, and I'm going to finish now really quickly, there is a deserted medieval settlement, and this consists of a couple of houses, these sort of rectangular houses, again kind of hard to see on the ground. I just happened to get some good light with the drone, and you can see there's definitely two lovely rectangular houses in the front, if you can see my cursor, and there's another one, there's a third and possibly a fourth one, and they're in a row. They seem to be forming kind of in a row, in a line with each other, and that's just from another angle. You can see the enclosure is up at the top of the screen, and these are the houses from the other direction. But I just wanted to show you that this is what they look like, and I've started kind of mapping out where there's possibly houses are. So there's these two lovely, definitely these two here are rectangular. There's another two, they're not as in good condition, a bit harder to see on the ground. So there's about, definitely, you're looking at four small ones here, and then there's a larger one over here to the right hand side. This one seems to be doing kind of some interesting things. Again, I'm not as good with medieval houses, but it looks like there's like possibly walls on the inside of it. There is another remains of one wall and a little bit here of an L-shaped wall of possibly another house, and then I think there might be another one here as well. So I went out after I aerial photographed them, went out and then looked and see what was there on the ground, because you kind of can't rely on the aerial photographs to like, is that something or is it not? I had lots of things marked on this and went out, and then I could dismiss them while I was out on the site. So I just wanted to show you, there's the two houses from the ground. So again, these sort of, they're kind of, they probably had a stone base, stone foundations, and then probably some sort of a nice, timber roof or wicker roof of some sort. And they're about like 5 or 6 meters long, about 5 meters long. So they're not huge, but they're still substantial enough. I just wanted to show you, this is actually just, it's just a drawing, again, a bit of speculation going on here as to what the houses might have looked like. So these are not too far from Templecronan. They're literally just to the north of it. So these houses are probably associated with the living quarters of the monks themselves, or possibly lay people. It's I can't say for sure, but this is just what the houses may have looked like, kind of rectangular, with kind of straw-like roofs. And there would have been this area, part of the site probably would have been quite domestic, and there would have been quite a buzz of activity going on here. And just to bring you back to the quernstone, that's they were grinding their corn, but they may likely have had their own corn drying kilns as well. And you can see from this reconstruction there's a lot of activity. So whoever drew this was doing a lot of stuff that was going on in these medieval kind of settlements. And now Mungret is a village, so it's a bit bigger to what we have at Templecronan. But just in the foreground you can see there's corn drying kilns, and we do know from excavations in Mungret that there were a number of corn drying kilns there. I mean, there was bees, they have beehives in the drawing, so there's just a lot of activity. So I do think that you're probably, if excavations were to ever happen, you might find a good bit of activity in the settlement itself. And then this is just more reconstructions of what settlements looked like. The one on the right is kind of a 7th, 8th century reconstruction. So you can see the stone church, and then the kind of like stone kind of houses and walls. So I'm just kind of throwing it out there what it may have looked like. But again, we know from that settlement that the houses, rather than being circular, these are all kind of shown in circular, kind of, they were in a line in that field. So maybe a little bit more surveying and a little bit more investigation might reveal a bit more about that settlement, but that settlement we can definitely say is associated with activity, with that long activity of Christian activity on Templecronan that we know goes from probably, the 7th century up until, we definitely know the 15th and 16th century because of the door being put in, and then to possibly a bit later until it went out of use. Anyway, I think that a few acknowledgements, just Matt and Sophia O'D, the landowner. We just couldn't have done the work without them kind of encouraging and giving over that bit of land. The Burrenbeo Trust, and the Burren Conservation Volunteers, who were just magnificent on the day. Also the Burren program, because really it was through them we did the works, and we got the ministerial consent through them, and the National Monument Service and Gro Conroy for their support and advice, Elaine Lynch for the help with the research for this presentation tonight. And just the FMA program is just supported by the Heritage Council, so it just Wanted just to thank all those people, and also the wall builder, who likes to say anonymous, but just again, he did a fantastic job. So, and just if anyone's on Facebook, the Field Monument Advisor Programme, County Clare, you might like to follow us, and we kind of show some of the works that we're involved in as we're doing them, and sometimes afterwards. So it just shows kind of some of the details of the programs, of the jobs, the works that we're doing. So thanks. And there's a nice video that Donal did of us on Templecronan just after the works, if you want to watch that as well. That's on Facebook. So thanks very much now for coming tonight. I'm sorry now I've gone on a bit, but if anyone has any questions, I'll try my best to answer.
Claude, that word, sorry, I'm calling you Claude now, Elaine. That's disgraceful. Elaine, you were absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. The picture you painted, starting with the work you've done on the site and then leading into what the bigger picture can be, it was absolutely fantastic. And I must say, the day that we cleared and moved the wall, it was just the most amazing day. And you know, the feeling on the ground when the work was being done, it's a really, really special, really nice site. And we've got a wonderful audience watching you there, Elaine. So I think we've definitely got people from as far as America, from what I can see on there too.
Oh, I hope you got to, I hope I showed the site well enough for people who haven't seen it, you know. So
and they're frequent visitors, so if they haven't, then we'll definitely have to take them now and show them off your wall properly. So no, Elaine, that was utterly amazing, and your enthusiasm comes through so strongly all the way through. So thank you so much for a great talk.